Welcome back to Interrupted, everyone. I'm your host, Conor Bronsdon. Today, I'm joined by Ashish Aggarwal, founder and CTO of Productive. Ashish is not only a successful founder, but also an active investor in over 30 companies. He's someone who's deeply involved in the startup ecosystem. And today, we're excited to hear his insights on scaling teams, the impact of AI on startups, and how to navigate the current macroeconomic climate. Welcome to the show, Ashish.
Thank you, Connor. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation because I think you bring a lot of insight both from your personal experiences and the kind of awareness you have of what's happening within tech startups, within software engineering broadly. But before we jump into the conversation, I do want to remind our audience that if you enjoy our episodes, please just take a brief moment to rate and review Dev Interrupted on your podcasting app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to bring you more great conversations with engineering leaders like Ashish. Now we've got that a little bit out of the way. We all know the startup ecosystem has changed. It's becoming increasingly difficult for companies to receive enough funding, let alone become unicorns. In fact, there's data from Carta that shows that of startups that raised their seed round in Q3 2020, only about 40% have graduated to Series A in 2 years. But that's actually quite a high rate compared to the folks who raised their seed cohort in Q1 2022. That's just 15.4% of those folks have actually raised a Series A in the 8 quarters since. So we're seeing this cash crunch. And then on top of that, Gen AI is reshaping the tech landscape, and leaders have to reckon with how to keep their teams motivated and happy in these challenging times. So with that in mind, Ashish, as someone who's deeply involved in the startup world, what are you seeing in the ecosystem right now? And how do you think startups should think about growing in this environment?
Right, Connor. So you are right, right? Things have changed. I I would not say things have changed for better or for worse. It's just that it's a new environment, and I think you've heard of this, that it's no longer growth at any cost. It's now the name of the game is efficient growth, right? And so that's what I am seeing in Productive, but also across the market in different companies that I am involved with. Um, Investors, and rightfully so, are saying, "Hey, look, money is not cheap. We want we want you to judiciously use the money. You know, invest, build products which are useful. Don't just go chase some pie in the sky kind of thing." So efficient growth is the name of the game now.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a shift from this aggressive growth at all costs, as you put it, to more sustainable, more efficient strategies. And it's definitely a trend I'm noticing in conversations with industry leaders. What challenges or opportunities do you see this creating for startups today?
It really, to some extent, it solves that problem of saying this: the market, or the startup market, see, startup ecosystem had become too crowded, right? Um, Everybody running after any reasonable opportunity. Now it is, you know, as, sometimes they say, what's the saying there, that you you separate the milk from the water, or what have you, eat from the shaft. Um, I think that's what we are seeing now. So the opportunity there now is clear. The opportunity for startups is clear, especially for founders. Have have a clear vision of what customer problem you're solving, how you can actually solve it in without requiring a giant boatload of money to make a small amount of money. Founders are being forced in and this is good, actually, that founders are being forced to think like businessmen, like business people. They're like, look, you are creating a company, but after all, you are creating a business. You
Right.
have to solve a real problem. You have to have real customers. You have to have a real plan of how you will make money. And it could be that the money will come in the long term. That's an okay plan, right? It doesn't need to be profitable from day one, but you need to think about that, um, instead of the good old plan of, well, we'll just get more money from the market. We don't need to actually make money. So, and I think that's good for the startup ecosystem. Overall, it makes everybody more healthy if we think of first principles in building a business.
I agree with you. I think it's a positive for the ecosystem in the long run, though I know it can feel hard for founders and employees in the moment. It's like that we're not trying to downplay how hard this is for many companies, for many people, but the long-term impacts on having better businesses that are more efficient, that hopefully have a better impact for the dollars spent on them, should be positive. And I wonder
Absolutely.
if, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. And I just want to echo that. This is not to downplay at all how hard, employees, founders, even investors are feeling with this market.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody is feeling the heat. But the more people I talk to, the more they say, hey, Ashish, you know what? We are that company. We are those people who are solving a real problem, who have real customers. In fact, the fact that we are forced to, or we are more encouraged now to talk to the customers, to understand the problem a little bit deeper, to understand the revenue potential, to show the value to our customers and then to the markets. It's helping us build a good product and a good sales motion much faster than if we were not under this pressure. So the pressure in some sense is bringing out the best in a lot of people.
Do you think that a lot of this kind of rationale of, hey, we have to be like the full winners, we have to monopolize a market, we have to just push for growth, growth, growth. I mean, I know it was related to cheap money, obviously, like that's a huge part of it, low interest rates. But do you think part of it also was related to seeing these outsized winners and getting obsessed with the Googles, the Metas, and the kind of massive outcomes they had versus realizing, hey, I can run an efficient business and maybe I'm not going to own an entire massive market?
It's somewhat true. Again, I cannot speak to who was thinking like what, um, but I think in general that mentality was, I did see that and of saying, hey, we'll figure out the money making part later. Uh, uh, you know, People were always, I think they were disciplined enough to say, hey, are we solving a good problem, a real problem, or at least a
Totally.
realistic problem? But that part about efficiency wasn't part of the picture because nobody was asking for it. They're like, keep spending money, get to 100 million customers or something, and then figure out how to make money, right?
Yeah.
And only a very few people in the world, or very few companies in the world now can afford that. I mean, Facebook can clearly still afford that. It doesn't make any money from WhatsApp, but hey, it's a good business. So
Brand
we
play.
all
Yeah.
can play. But not everybody is Mark Zuckerberg. So,
Very few. Yeah.
so we have to have a different strategy than Mark.
So, given that need to adapt to more efficient growth, are you seeing more teams looking for talent from non-traditional backgrounds or in non-traditional geographies?
Yes. And to tell the truth, I am hearing that this is a trend, not just in small companies or startups, but also a trend in much bigger companies.
Yeah.
Also, where, I'm hearing that most of the new budget that comes in is first allocated to quote unquote offshore growth, whether it is Latin America or India or wherever, right? Wherever is your favorite location for getting the talent. And I think a lot of factors have combined into that, right? One, we all know that, COVID as bad it was, it also showed all of us how we can work remotely from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so that opened the doors to say, well, if you have good talent, in fact, the top talent especially knows how to work from anywhere in the world. The tools have become more mature. The mentality has become more mature of working with each other from anywhere. So the teams can be geo-distributed. And so now, and because of the cost pressure, now the name of the game has become, get the top talent, because after all, that is also part of the pressure to say, you have to solve a real problem, you have to solve it fast, you have to make sure the customer value is there and so on and so forth, which means you need top talent. But the good news is there's talent all over the world, including in the United States, by the way. We are part of
Yeah.
the world and we have a lot of top talent right here in the United States. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be limited to the locality that you happen to be in. So yes, I am seeing startups and big companies but especially startups move more towards geo-distributed teams instead of central, co-located teams.
And to your point, that's really been enabled by us being forced to figure out working remotely. Like I'd been working remotely or hybrid for years before COVID, but now everyone has had to make that transition and at least experience it for a couple of years. And it's really, I think, made companies aware of the opportunities to acquire talent worldwide. And it's made the job market competitive worldwide, it seems like, as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, yes, this is happening, but also I'm seeing on the opposite side, uh, there is still benefit in pockets, right? Depending upon the role, depending upon what you want to do, what problem you are solving specifically. Some roles, some teams just work better when they are co-located, when they are brainstorming on a whiteboard. It just makes higher efficiency or higher productivity for the company. Again, reminder that the problem we are trying to solve is just higher efficiency for the company, not geo-distribution for the sake of geo-distribution.
Yeah.
Uh, it is really the top talent which is driving things, not just that you can get things for lower cost. Nobody wants to sacrifice productivity here. So in some cases, I'm also seeing that people are saying, no, this job, whatever, it can vary from company to company, situation to situation, but these kind of jobs should be co-located because they just work better together.
I'm curious if you think that is true of like product and engineering roles, because there are many C-suite leaders who are kind of emphasizing return to office. So I'm curious on your perspective there.
Yes, product and engineering is interesting. I mean, we it's unfortunately not a single kind of a role, right? Product engineering has dozens of sub roles in it. So, for example, when your web engineer or front end engineer is trying to work with your UX designer, and they want to brainstorm things, and if they want to use a whiteboard, which they typically do, uh, and co-create, does it help if they are in the same room compared to a Zoom call? I think so. I think it helps that they are in the same room, right? But if you're infrastructure engineer who's trying to, deploy the latest version of the OS on your AWS machines, right? And in fact, even their teams, the infrastructure team, do they say that, hey man, we'll work well even if we are remote? In fact, we might work better if if we are free of distractions and nobody is like interrupting us. So it varies even within product and engineering what kind of
Yeah.
role. And by the way, even those roles might, in some other company, might be flipped. Right? Somebody might say my infra team needs to be in person and my product design can work remotely with each other. I empathize with the leaders who say back to work is necessary for some roles in some situations. Hell, I am one of those leaders who says not everybody needs to be co-located. We have a geo-distributed team here at Productive. We have engineers and other people in India. We have people in New York, in Denver, in Seattle, in Palo Alto, and so on and so forth. So we are a geo-distributed team. But then within these hubs, when I see some people, come together to work and brainstorm ideas, whiteboard or not, I think they often call me back and say, it was a good idea to meet at work, a couple of times a week. It made us go faster.
Yeah, it's really interesting as someone who I think personally I thrive in a remote work environment, but even as someone who is very pro remote work in general, there are clear benefits to in-person collaboration. There are clear benefits to co-location at times. And like I've been lucky to work in an environment the last several years where I am generally remote, but then I'll spend a week or two every quarter in person with my teams, in person with my colleagues, collaborating across teams, collaborating on like key projects, and then we go out and execute on that work afterwards. But to your point, I think it does really depend on the culture of the company, the type of folks you have involved, and the type of roles. And like it's a really tough balance right now to both try to acquire global talent, get access to all these incredibly talented people worldwide, while also retain some of those collaborative benefits and find the right mix. So yeah, I think your point about the variation between roles is one that I think a lot of folks need to hear in what too often becomes an almost like religious debate of remote versus hybrid versus in office, and it's one or the other instead of this like series of grays, which I think is most things.
Yeah, it's true. And for product and engineering, my philosophy has evolved into um, to reuse the word a hybrid philosophy, which is it's not pure remote that, if there are whatever 100 people in the team, they are in 100 different locations, and everybody's just pure remote. But it's also not that all 100 are in the same location. So what's the hybrid? The hybrid is create create, you can call it hubs, create pockets where you put a team together of the right roles and say, you people can collaborate in person, again, in multiple times a week or whatever works for you. Um, and you have this certain goals that you are trying to solve. You have a certain problem that you are trying to solve. And if you distribute this properly, you'll create multiple hubs, and each hub is solving an important problem, and they have the choice to collaborate in person if and when they need to. And I think that works a little bit better, more flexibility on both sides. You get the global talent, but you also have the choice of working in person, especially for product and engineering. I think that works pretty well.
So obviously there's this massive alchemy people are trying to solve right now of how do you set up your teams for this new geo-distributed world with global talent? How do you make sure you retain some of that in-office collaboration? How do you set up the right infrastructure? And so it's awesome to hear about your approach to this. But there's this entire other element of change that's coming through too, which is obviously AI. Speaking of efficiently scaling a business, I'd be kind of remiss if I didn't bring this up. But it's interesting because if you ask, individual developers, many will say, at least senior devs, I don't really use AI that much. Like it's not helping me with the things that are actual problems for me, like meetings. It's not helping me with the things that make me less efficient, which is it's not the coding that's the problem for me. Now, I think you talk to junior devs who are coming up and they're like, oh, I rely on this. It's very important to me. And if you talk to leaders, I think leaders all think there are massive opportunities with AI. And even many devs will talk about, tests are a great thing that I can, can offload that to an AI to help me write some tests and do these other things. What's your perspective on this kind of AI wave? How are you utilizing AI at Productive?
Um, so many questions in one, right? So
Yeah, sorry, I threw a lot at you
AI,
there.
I'll take them one at a time. I think is AI useful? Absolutely, right? Is there a disconnect between how individual developers might be using AI to improve coding or testing or what have you, versus you know what's the marketing pitch saying, hey, AI will solve world hunger? Absolutely. So let me agree with you. Uh, you know the the promise of AI today is way bigger than the actual reality of how people are using AI, including developers. Um, Has AI made productive developers 30% better? No, it hasn't. We uh, have we tried looking at it? Yes. In its current form, we said, let us wait a little, right? Uh, we are not finding it as useful as it's hyped to be. I'm hearing the same thing from many other engineering leaders saying, we as at a leadership level, we want to try it just in case there is something here. But individual engineers are saying that trying is one thing, but I have my day job here. I am. It's not helping if I have to review the entire output of Gen AI to see what did it miss and what did I get right. And plus, I have to maintain all the code anyway. So I have to understand the whole code and I have to correct mistakes. So it helps, but not really that and we've explored the ideas behind testing, test generation, or even code reviews or code generation. Actually, is it going to get there? I think so. I think AI uh, is one of those things that we are early, right? And as we are building
Fair.
and learning, um, you were asking earlier, how is AI impacting the startup ecosystem, right? It's 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 a sword or it's a knife that's cutting both ways, right? On one hand, every investor says, if you are not a pure AI company, well, then, I need to think twice about funding you. Not
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
is thinking like that, but many are.
Plenty are. We could name some names. Yeah.
Yes. But on the other hand, AI is such a giant opportunity, right? Some people were saying to me, um, some founders were saying to me, like, this is the wave of internet all over again, right? Uh, and and sure, it's early days. We don't know how internet will play out. If you remember back in the 90s, we didn't know how it will play out, but eventually we
Yeah.
know how it played out. So is it this wave of internet that will completely transform the world? We might be in a very early stage of that and people will figure it out. Or it could be one of those waves that did not play out, like a blockchain wave where we thought it would change the world and and it didn't. I personally think AI is one of the internet kind of waves, right? I think it will take a few years for us to figure it out, but we will figure it out and it will enable all of humanity, including engineers, including developers, to do their jobs in a different way, in a better way. So Gen AI, especially apart from on top of AI, I think is a really, really important innovation that has happened. And so it will help us. How are we using it at Productive? I think that's one of the questions you asked. Yes, there is a
Sure.
general purpose thing that everybody knows. That you use it to write marketing emails, or you use it on the go-to-market function side, whether it's customer support or whatnot. So we are dabbling with that, some of those tools in there. On the product side, uh, we are more involved with AI and Gen AI in building our product, or rather in the product features we enable for our customers instead of, having our developers use Gen AI to write code. So we don't do that. The second part, our developers are not using Gen AI to write code. Everything is done literally by hand
Yeah.
in the plain old fashion. We are using Gen AI to provide human friendly or human friendlier interfaces to interact with our product, so that our customers can benefit from Gen AI to understand our product better, to get insights faster and better, to get their jobs done faster using Productive.
Yeah. I wonder if right now we're seeing the most efficiency gains when you have enterprise scale with AI on the product side of things. Because I look at like the recent announcement by Amazon that they see their generative AI tool internally saving, I believe it was 4,500 years of work and $260 million annually, with it focused specifically on code transformation capabilities around taking them from like Java 8 and 11 and applications to Java 17. These kind of things where it's like, okay, this is a migration. Devs really don't want to spend their time on this. Most devs are not excited by that, but it's something that we want to get done for efficiency's sake long term. And my take right now is that, like, to your point, like a lot of these tools that we're leveraging right now in AI are so experimental, especially on the code side, that in order to have the challenge of making sure it all works and the trust side of it, the safety side of it makes sense, you need this level of scale where you can have a whole platform engineering team that's devoted to that and say, hey, look, yes, we're going to take this first pass with AI and then we're going to review it. And it's going to save us a ton of time if you have the scale to apply that. But for a team of 100 engineers, it's a lot harder to have a bunch of folks that you can throw at a problem like that when you still have to deliver other business critical work.
I think you're onto something there. I think, when you have a large amount of repetitive work, which you can, say there's a standard way to do this, we can teach an AI agent on how to do this and then, do the repetitive work. It's better to do it via AI than just plain old automation that we used to do in these cases. So yes, the power of automation or standard repetitive work has been, I guess there's more power if you use AI to do that work. But where most of the work is net new, whether it's, uncharted waters with a typical small development team, you have that.
Yeah.
Then it's harder to use AI as of today. It might get easier as we go along, but harder as of today.
Yeah, to your point, I think the innovative work, the kind of innovation piece of technology and startups is where AI is not yet as strong, from my viewpoint at least.
I agree with you on that.
So You did say you think AI is a transformative internet level wave, though, potentially. What do you kind of see as the future of AI as we go into the next couple of years, as maybe it gets better at solving those technical problems, or as it gets applied in other areas of technical expertise?
Absolutely. So, there are multiple layers of Gen AI and AI, and we have all seen those charts, I think. The core of LLMs, which only very few big companies can build, and then there are tools on top of that. But then the outermost layer, in some sense, is this, creating agents. And the simplest way to say this is take any human or any human doing any job and say, we will have an AI agent who can do this job. We can have an AI agent who can interview the interviewers, or we will have an AI agent who will respond to you, Connor, uh,
Yeah.
or or what have you, right? I mean, everything. Um, and I think that is now, we may not be able to replace humans completely, but I think what will happen is as AI gets better, um, we will be able to assist almost all humans in almost all jobs that they are doing, right?
So do you
And
think
take it
this
with a grain
will?
of salt, not literally all humans with literally all jobs, but most humans in most jobs will say, we have an AI assistant and it makes us go faster, whether it's in generating content, whether it's in generating insights, whether it's in understanding the world, whether it's in operating machinery or actually doing things via robotic arms or what have you.
Yeah, I have to say, I think Microsoft's kind of perspective here about like not just Copilot for engineering, but Copilot for every kind of role is one that makes sense to me broadly. So I'm really interested to see how that is continued to be implemented because I agree. I think there's an opportunity to create those efficiency gains for folks over time. It's just a question of, when do you get the scale to make it work, and when does it get strong enough to really be impactful? And that obviously will vary depending on job areas, depending on how things are set up. Um, and I hope that it will kind of reduce the need for some technical expertise in using complex products at times, letting folks learn faster. And I'll say, like, just on a personal level, like leveraging AI to help me learn something faster has been a great use case. And so I can see how that can potentially scale across a lot of different areas.
No, absolutely. When humans are freed from, let me say, the mundane task or the repetitive task, or even some of the creative tasks, but if somebody else is helping them, in this case, a copilot, um, my belief is that humanity just, levels up and says, now that I have free time and my mind is free to do more innovative things, we just do it, whether it's learn faster, whether it's do the next level of things. So it will be good for innovation all along that some tasks are punted to AI Copilot to do for us. And learning is uh, absolutely one of those things where it becomes a lot low pressure, in my opinion, when you are talking to an AI based teacher instead of somebody who's pounding you over the head, uh, as one example of learning.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to see how it transforms the educational sector over the coming years because there's a huge opportunity there to improve a lot of learning outcomes if done well.
Absolutely. And again, none of us are saying that it will replace teachers, right? Not saying that, because there's a lot of human element of, an emotional element of how a teacher grows a child or whoever is trying to learn. Um, uh, but yes, some parts of the repetitive work that a teacher is doing or an educator is doing, if they are taken away by AI, you know, whether it's checking the scorecards, or
Yeah.
whether it's, putting together new material or saying the material in different languages, or, answering questions at any time in point, right? There's an always available teacher copilot that a student can talk to. All of these things, and there are tons and tons of ideas there. Um, I think it will help humanity in every facet, including in teaching.
I cannot wait until I can have a very efficient earpiece in that lets me live translate languages, and we're getting very close to that. So it is definitely super exciting, and I think it's interesting to look at. all these kind of transformational waves together. We have obviously this remote work wave. We have changes on the monetary macroeconomic environment. We have changes on the technology side with AI, following kind of close on the heels of this like mobile transformation we saw in the early 2000s. How are you kind of navigating things as a founder and bringing this all together in what is a challenging transformational time?
It is a challenging time, but it's also an exciting time, right? I mean, I see all of these as opportunities, right? The investment landscape, for example, where there is, money is tighter, it forces us to be more disciplined in solving real problems with our customers, in talking more to our customers, in not taking things for granted, right? In taking a look under every rock to say, hey, what did we miss? When we look at AI, um, I don't think the days, and sure, we are not using the full power of AI today because it's not mature, but I think it's coming, and we are looking every single day, if not every single week, or rather other way. We are looking every single week, if not every single day, to um, to see how AI can help us build a better product for our customers, which we are already doing, but also make our engineers, our designers, our salespeople, marketing people, everybody more efficient at their job. So, in some sense, yes, the wave of AI and the macroeconomics are pressing us to be more efficient, but in the same sense, they are also helping us be more efficient. And, Productive is actually in a very unique spot, if I may take a minute there,
Please.
because, the whole wave of the macro wave of asking companies to get more efficient with their spend, uh, turns out that's actually what we do. Productive is, we increase productivity of our customers, specifically, the IT teams and the procurement teams in our customers when they are, buying the software or managing software from third parties. So when the CFO is coming to, or a customer CFO is coming to the CIO or the IT teams and saying, hey, look, let's make sure we are spending money wisely. Let's reduce our spend by 10% or what have you. Productive is the tool that helps them. So in some sense, for us specifically, this whole macroeconomic wave of saying cost efficiency is actually helping us, because that's the problem we solve for our customers.
Yeah, and definitely go check out productive.com for folks who are interested in learning more. It's a really interesting company. And I saw you actually put out a trend report on the 2024 state of SaaS consolidation trends that looked really fascinating as well, and maybe speaks to some of these technology trends that are happening.
Absolutely. And it goes to the point that you were saying earlier. In fact, the trend is not that people are adopting less technology. The trend is that every enterprise is adopting more technology, because more technology is needed to enable a geo-distributed workforce to work more efficiently. You need better tools. And yes, we are seeing a giant uptick in the use of AI-based technologies, starting with, ChatGPT. Obviously, we are seeing ChatGPT has suddenly become the thing that everybody, or most people in most companies are using, whether or not, their leaders know about it. Everybody is actually trying to
Yeah.
use it. Uh, but people are using more tools. Enterprises are using more tools. It's just that they are trying to do it more efficiently. They are trying to manage their workforce more efficiently. But technology is the solve for it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, speaking of OpenAI, to see how their next raise goes, because they are like such a market leader, but they're also burning through cash and have a like potentially the highest ever private valuation for a raise in this next raise they're going to go through. So I'll be fascinated to see, how Microsoft handles them continuing to give them Azure credits and everything else to go into it. It's going to be a really interesting ride for them.
It must be. This is way above my pay grade to figure out
Yeah,
what
yeah.
Microsoft and OpenAI will do.
We're
Right?
just
Okay.
we're just interested to see. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, well, let me ask you, like, this is, I mean, we're seeing these technology trends. We're seeing more and more technology purchases. We're seeing this consolidation effect you mentioned in Productive's research. How do you keep your team, motivated, focused, and maintain this like a high context, high agency culture in these challenging times?
It's very, that formula hasn't changed, right? And throughout my years of working at many, many companies, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon, big names, or smaller companies like Postmates or Productive itself, for the last 6.5 years, what I've found is that, top talent, especially in product and engineering, but really across the board in any discipline, but I'll speak to product and engineering. Top talent in product and engineering really wants just three things, right? Uh, they know they can solve big problems. So they want big problems to be available to them to be solved. They say, challenge me. I want to use my time and my skills in solving something meaningful. So if we can put together a good vision on saying these are the set of problems that our customers may want solved over many, many years, hopefully a multi-year vision, and then a short-term vision part of that. And those problems are difficult. They're not trivial to be solved. That is first piece of the puzzle, right? The second piece of the puzzle is, you know, top performers or top talent understand that hard problems they cannot solve by themselves. So they need a team of other, whatever top talent around that. A lot of engineers have come to me, recently and in the past years, consistently saying, Sheesh, the biggest reason I'm excited coming to work every day is look at the team around. I love working with these people. I love solving hard problems with these people. There's always an aha moment that I say, oh my God, I'm so smart. I used to think I'm so smart, but I'm clearly not smart enough because these are the people that have figured this out better. And they're like, I love it, right? And everybody gets those aha moments almost every day where they find somebody with a better suggestion than they were thinking of. So having a team of top talent around them. And the third thing is actually a very interesting thing. So if you have hard problems, and if you identify and if you gather a team of people who can solve those hard problems, then the only thing for a leader to do is really let that team actually solve the hard problem, which is what we call culture, broadly speaking, which is saying, hey, how much bureaucracy do you insert in the middle? How many forms do they have to fill in triplicate? How many roadblocks are you putting in front of them? Or how many roadblocks are you taking out? And my philosophy has been, take out as many roadblocks as you can. Let these high-powered people actually solve the hard problems that our customers want to get solved. If they see that impact and they see that they can actually create that impact, then, these things that you were talking about, how do you motivate them to come to work every day? Or how do you motivate to put their best foot forward? I don't need to. It comes naturally. I don't even have to ask. I see this in the work. I see this in the smiles. I see this when every single time, an engineer cannot look past, the next month of good work on their plate, they actually ping me and say, Ashish, we have a problem. I'm like, what's the problem? Ashish, I only have 1 month of, good work left on my plate. I'll be idle. Like, no, this is not a problem. Plenty of things. But imagine somebody saying, I need more work, more hard work. And I love that culture.
Yeah.
And I think if you get to that state, things just happen, good things happen for a company and for a team. And fortunately, it has happened for me over many years now.
I love to hear that because I'll say as like a team member, like you want to learn if you're a high performer. You want to be around people who push you and, help make you better and who you respect deeply. And so this kind of perspective of like, not only am I going to bring in the right people to have that kind of high learning, high impact culture, but I'm also going to give them autonomy and agency to go do these things and not feel micromanaged. I mean, those are the best kind of teams. Ashish, this has been a fantastic conversation. Before we wrap up, do you have any other closing advice that you want to share with the leaders who are listening today?
Like the closing advice as a founder, I would say, yes, you've heard everything about how, how the markets are tough, the macro is tough, the AI is taking over the world, which is, by the way, an opportunity. But my closing advice is to stick to the first principles, right? Always stick to saying, hey, look, do we really understand a customer problem? If you understand a customer problem, if you're solving a real problem, and if that problem is hard, that cannot be just solved by somebody else after you solve it. So find a customer problem which is real, which is hard enough, which is unsolved, uh, and then get a good team. You can't do it yourself. If you have a good customer problem and a good team to help you solve that problem, everything else will come. Don't worry about whether people will invest. You know what? If you're solving good problem, there'll be a lot of investors lined up outside your door. If you're solving a good problem with a good team or a good seed team, there'll be a lot of other good team members lined up outside your door. Whether you use AI or not is your choice. That's a solution looking for a problem. So if you go problem first, you'll be fine. If you invent a solution looking for a problem later, then that's a path of trouble.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ashish. It's been a fantastic time having you on the show, and I'm sure our listeners will take a lot away from this conversation. So, for more insights about the software engineering landscape, what's happening in the startup ecosystem, and more from Ashish, be sure to check out this week's edition of our Dev Interrupted newsletter on Substack, where we dive deeper into the topics we discussed today. We'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's discussion, so join the conversation on Twitter or LinkedIn by tagging @DevInterrupted, and let us know how you're navigating these challenges in your own work. Ashish, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Conor.